Welcome to the Super Region 3 football podcast put forth by D2Football.com. I am Matt Witwicky. Some people will call me Witt. I am joined by my GLIAC expert, Tony Nicolette. Tony, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing just dandy, pal. Just dandy.
I'm with you. Are you guys all ready? Do you have your Thanksgiving plans figured on out and all that? Are you being put forth with a lot of tasks?
Everything is coming together, my friend. Coming together. Gonna have a whole house full of hooligans here on Thursday. It's gonna be a good time. What about you?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where we're just kind of playing a little bit more by ear and stuff like that. And now we've kind of everything came together today. So I'm the kind of guy who plans a little bit, kind of want to have a little bit idea what we're doing, not just kind of walk in on this. So yeah, I'm with you, buddy. But let's go ahead and we're going to take a look, Tony, at the bracket for Super Region 3. I'll be honest with you, every time I go to say this, Tony, I can't remember if I'm talking about Super Region 3 or 4 anymore.
I don't blame you.
I see Minnesota State on there. Yeah, so my mind all of a sudden it doesn't grip it right. And but you know, we take a look here. We had Ashland. You know what? They were the better seed, Tony. Mm-hmm. But I think by and large, if you took a look at national polls, you took a look at what people thought coming in, Ashland with what most people would think is kind of an upset there. And then you take a look, Ferris took care of business handily. So did UIndy, probably a little bit more than we thought was going to happen. And then Minnesota State, it's the playoffs. So what do? They win.
They go on the road and they win. That's right.
So, yeah. But we're going to go ahead and start a little bit with the first game that you and I just mentioned a moment ago. And that's going to be Ashland winning 32-7 over Duluth. And, you know, Tony, I watched this football game. And Duluth goes ahead. Yeah, big kick return to start the ball game, and then they were able to go ahead and do some of their ground and pound. And Wall Jasper did his thing. He gets in the end zone. And if you would have told me at that time that was the only time he was going to, go ahead and hit pay dirt, I would have said you're crazy.
That's kind of the gut that I got too. Is they kind of went down, handled it, and then that was the first gut reaction that you get out of the game is, okay, how is Ashland going to respond? And we got an answer pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, balanced attack offensively, Tony.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I thought, played with not very many negative plays or notable mistakes. And on the other side, they went ahead and got a lot of pressure.
Yep.
And really forced the issue up front. And they go ahead and get 5 sacks. They block a field goal. I thought was a pivotal play in the first half. 2 interceptions, get a few fumble recoveries. I mean, so it was one of those games where the turnovers certainly had a huge impact. But I thought that Ashland getting after them up front had a whole heck of a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that, we talked a little bit about this, I think on Sunday night is I think we saw some exposure into just how Wall Jasper reliant Duluth was throughout maybe some of this season. Sure. And Ashland's game plan defensively was so great and they executed it so well that they really showed that it might get you through your league season, but when it comes playoff time, if it takes one guy to get you through to the next round, that is not a recipe for success against most teams that are going to make the bracket. And it certainly wasn't a success against Ashland. They were ready for it, and they took care of it.
Well, and we're going to go ahead. Our guy Chuck Bittner was boots on the ground there at Ashland, and he went ahead and has some images, and I'm going to go ahead and share those right now as we're kind of talking through this. We can't show the highlights of the football game. The NCAA and ESPN's agreement is that, but nice setup there at Ashland. And one of the things I noticed, Tony, in watching this is that every time when Wall Jasper is used to getting past that first line and going ahead and being able to get ahead of steam, and all of a sudden the safety's having to come up and have the task of trying to tackle him, a 245-pound man.
Right.
And I didn't think Ashland ever really kind of let him kind of get the car out of the garage very often.
Yeah, no, if you can keep him boxed up and not let him get to that next level of the defense, that's one of the ways to stop him. And I agree with you. That was one of the things I was noticing too. Witt was no matter what Duluth did in terms of whether they went inside or went slightly off tackle, did any kind of trap, if they rolled him, it just seemed like that front seven did most of the work for Ashland in containing him, and that feeds into exactly what you were saying. If you can keep the bigger guys tackling them and not leave it to the smaller guys on the back end making tackles in space, that's a good recipe to slow him down.
Well, and I thought on the flip side, I thought Cameron Blair did a nice job of taking what Duluth gave him. He went ahead and had almost 80 yards on the ground and had some big chunk plays, especially early in that football game. Along with Chris Maloney, I thought in the second half really kind of turned things on for them and got some big plays for them and kind of helped salt things away. But you know what? I just thought really impressive effort by Ashland. We didn't know, we didn't think that someone would be able to keep Duluth down the way they did, and wildly impressive effort.
Well, especially after the way we saw Ashland, frankly, have that same type of thing done to them just a couple of weeks ago when they played Findlay.
Sure.
When we watched that game, that was one of the things you and I talked about was, geez, it just seemed like and actually Chuck, I think, even talked about this quite a bit, was it just seemed like Findlay owned the line of scrimmage in that game. And so I think that's part of why coming into this week, we're like, okay, based on that recency bias, we didn't really feel like the Eagles would hold up as well up front against Duluth as they did in this game. And obviously they proved that we're just a bunch of talking heads who don't know anything. So
there's plenty of people who watch
that's why the kids get to go
play. Yeah, people came to that conclusion some time ago, but
they keep watching. I don't understand it.
Well, there's just not a whole lot of other options. Let's be honest.
Yeah, must be.
But we're lucky enough to be joined by head coach of Ashland University, and that's Doug Geiser. Coach, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, you know what? In true coaching fashion, Coach figured out a way to come on with us despite the fact that they don't have internet right now at Ashland. And you know what? He improvised, called an audible, and you know what? He's here with us. Coach, I mean, I tell you, this might be your toughest thing to have to figure out all week, other than navigating the whole Thanksgiving dinner.
It might be. Thank you to shout out to Dusty Sloan. He hooked me up with you guys.
Okay. And we will have Coach give us a little. Coach, I'm going to have you give a little bit more talking your team voice here in just a moment. But I do have to ask you. We did a little bit of unpacking the contest from someone who's had a chance to watch the film again and kind of see what you thought you did real well, what you could have done better. Unpack a little bit for us, if you would, from your perspective.
Yeah, from after looking at the tape on Sunday. I thought it was probably our best game so far in 2025 in all three phases. Had a big change the game type of moment on field goal block. Nico Tracek, our offensive lineman, had a big block. That was a big momentum swing at that point in time.
Totally was.
Yep.
I thought, offensively, being able to control the line of scrimmage and be able to run the ball, whether it was the quarterback or Chris Maloney, who's really added a spark to our offense in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And then, defensively, Tim Rose, our defensive coordinator, a great job holding down their run, especially their quarterback, who is pretty explosive. And it made him one-dimensional. And if we can do that, we always like our chances with guys like Mike Shimmick and Elisha Baldridge bringing pressure in the pass game.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what, Coach, real quick, you mentioned Tim Rose, and there was no way that we could do an interview with you without talking about your defensive coordinator. And, for those who aren't familiar with Tim Rose, we're going to get a chance to see him here for a moment. Coach, we're going to get you kind of some of your feedback here momentarily.
Ashland! 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 You just saw! Fast flight! Fast flight! Can't pop it! Can't pop it! Can't stop it! Legendary! Eagle defense! Eagle defense!
Coach, for those who aren't familiar with Tim Rose in the D2 world, tell everybody a little bit more about your guy.
Well, Tim is 83 years young, and he is in his 62nd year of coaching football. Long-time defensive coordinator on the Division I level, was a head coach at Miami of Ohio in the mid-'80s. Very successful everywhere he's been. As you can tell, the passion he's got is just it just gathers you in. You know, you want to be a part of something like that. His charisma with that, and kids love playing for him. There's nobody that studies the game more than Tim. Doesn't take it for granted. Doesn't mail it in. You know, he always has a chance to reinvent himself. The neat thing about him is, I think everybody in America in the coaching world either played for Tim, GA'd for Tim, or coached with Tim. Yeah. You know, and that's when he makes phone calls to research, he's calling like Phil Parker at Iowa. He's talking to Bud Foster. You know, I can't remember the defense or the linebacker coach for the Vikings. All those guys coached with him. So it's one of those things that's it's a blessing to have him on staff. It really is, and it's a great role model for our young coaches, and great role model for me, and a great sounding board for me as I'm being a first-time head coach.
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah, and he's been around. I mean, we were talking before the show, Coach, about how you and I have at least been aware of the other back from my initial stint. And yeah, Coach Rose was known to all of us even back when I got started on this 20 years ago. So to see him still going is just fantastic. When you see him trying to get his guys ready emotionally the way he was in that clip, it makes me start thinking about some of the teams that we talked about on our show a couple of nights ago that showed up for the playoffs, maybe not quite as ready to play. I mean, we'd look at like a Johnson C. Smith or a CSU Pueblo who had really heavy-duty stretches at the end of the season and big games with a lot of juice just the week before, and they just didn't come out ready. And you guys had a 4-game stretch there that culminated with that Findlay game where you played teams with winning records all 4 of those weeks, had that kind of close rivalry game against Findlay, and it didn't really go your way. Talk to me about how you got your guys rallied back from a result that I don't think they were expecting, and use that next game. I think you guys had Lake Erie in the last week to kind of turn things back around and say, hey, we got a lot in front of us here. How are we going to get ready for game 1 of the playoffs?
Well, Tony, one of the approaches we take throughout the season is we break it down to, hey, let's find a way to go 1-0 this week. And we do that every single week. And, for us, I mean, the thing that really started us through the season is we had 6 of our first 8 games on the road.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And so going into the season, we talked about the first day of camp. It was like, okay, hey, guys, we're going to talk about the first day of training camp. I don't want to hear about it anytime after that. We're not going to whine. We're not going to complain. And they're not going to ask who, where, why, and why, or who you're playing. They just want to know the result. So let's find a way to go 1-0 every week. Just keep the focus on that. Let's not look at the big picture. Okay, it's like that they talk about a tightrope walker. You don't look down. It's always look ahead. And so, for us, win or lose, we always challenge the guys after Sunday at 4:00. They leave the facility. We turn the page, win or lose. And so for us, we had some big wins. But in the Findlay game, it was unfortunate. Lost a rival game, didn't play well, turned the ball over. Kudos to them. But you know what? We turned the page the very next day and said, you know what? We're still playing for something. We're still ranked in the Super Region. We have a chance to control our destiny. Let's go 1-0 against Lake Erie. Let's get in and then shoot our shot from there. It's at that point, everybody's 0-0. It's a 5-week sprint. So let's go. Let's try to find a way to go 1-0 every week. And I've been lucky. The kids bought into it. The coaches have bought into that approach. And we played a lot of young kids the last couple of years. We got a lot of experience coming back. So it's been nice. They've been in those situations before.
Coach, this UMD team that you played was averaging about 40 points a game coming into the contest. We talked about how you guys really kind of dominated the game from there. Let me ask you defensively, what did you guys do? What was the game plan? What did you feel like you needed to do to kind of slow down Kyle Waljasper and company?
You know what? Had to show him a couple of different looks he might not have seen before, meaning from us. So change up the coverages a little bit. Find a way to control the line of scrimmage, control the run. He seemed to feed off the run throughout the year. So let's find a way to take away the run with the other running backs and with him and force him to throw the ball. And, Tim was able to do that. And we've got multiple fronts, and Tim came up with a winning formula there, and the kids executed, did a great job with it, taking away their run.
Right.
Hey, Coach, you've got obviously a great senior leader and quarterback with Cameron Blair. But obviously, you talked a little bit about too. Now you got that pop from the freshman and Chris Maloney at the running back position. Talk about just in this new kind of era of D2, where you see a lot of these kids after they have big pop years. If they still got a couple of years left, it seems like a lot of them are starting to leave and go up to other divisions and change scenery a little bit. Are you starting to see that you're going to use more younger guys like Maloney, maybe while you have them, or are we just finding that maybe that's just a shift to how Division II is going to have to navigate the next few years?
I think more than anything else, Tony, I think what you're finding, the impact of the portal, is there's a lot of maybe some guys available at our level that might not have been available 8 to 10 years ago. Maybe guys that we would have signed when I was in the MAC at Akron, with Lee Owens, back a number of years ago. And so I've noticed that the last 3 classes, there are guys there that we would have signed at Akron when we were winning back in the day. And so, hey, at that point, you're going to play the best guys. And at this point, Chris Maloney, through some injury and whatnot, was thrown into the fire and was ready to play. Maybe not earlier in the year, but he is now. And, you ride it as long as you can.
Coach, tell us a little bit about what your week looks like. This is obviously one of those weird weeks where you got Thanksgiving on Thursday, and any coach I talk to says, Whit, as long as we're playing football this time of year, we'll figure out what we need to do, because that means that we're doing well, right? Tell me about what is kind of your plan for the week. When do you guys head up to Ferris? Give us a little bit of a insight of what that looks like.
Yeah, what we did is we kept Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday exactly the same in season. Okay, so same meeting time, same lifting time, same practice time, and we're adjusting on Wednesday and Thursday. So Wednesday, we're gonna practice in the morning. We usually practice in the afternoon at 3:30. We're gonna go at 9 in the morning, have our meetings, practice, and we're cut most of the scout team loose. Let them go home at that point. Bring the travel squad back in the afternoon to watch the tape, basically having our Thursday meetings at that point. We'll practice Thursday morning, 8 a.m. for about an hour and 15 minutes, then send everybody home for about 24 hours. Let them get away. Get everybody back Friday morning, 8:30, do our meetings here, then jump on the bus for Ferris at 10:30 and get up there about 4 o'clock.
Okay. Have you had a chance to, are you guys, I know that I'm out in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Tony's up in Michigan. We got a blizzard coming through here right now. Now that's coming, across the country, west to east. We've got a game in Indianapolis in the Super Region. We got a game in Ferris. Have you guys had a chance to look into the weather at all? Is it going to affect your travel or your ball game that you're seeing?
Well, I think we're going to get up there before the weather hits. We're anticipating snow and cold and all that sort of stuff. For us, we kind of take the attitude of, we don't worry about the things we can't control.
Yeah, sure.
We'll take the things we need just for the game there, but we can't control the officials, can't control the venue, can't control the opponent, can't control the weather. We'll say, tell us where to show up and when, and let's go to battle.
If the forecasts are right, Coach, your travel on Friday should probably be okay.
Yep.
But there'll be some snow in Big Rapids. I think by the time you get there, that's supposed to come in through tomorrow night and Thursday, and then Saturday, the stuff Witt's getting today and tomorrow, we're supposed to get here on Saturday. So it'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out. So I'm sure you've already started looking at tape and trying to figure out how you want to attack things this Saturday. Obviously, we're not going to ask you to give any secrets away, but what types of things
he won't. I'll ask you to give some away.
You can ask it, but as you get ready to take on Ferris State, what are some of the things that you've been impressed by, and what types of things you think that Ashland fans might want to look out for in the game?
Well, I think as you look at it, you're playing the defending national champions. They average over 50 points a game. They give up, they were shooting right around 10 points a game. They've got guys who look the part and guys who play the part. So it's the biggest challenge we've had. We've been fortunate through the years we've played them, so we're kind of familiar with what they do. It doesn't mean you can stop it. Okay, but at least you've seen it. You've seen it up close and personal, and we played in that venue before, and so hey, they're very explosive on offense. A lot of skill. Everything always revolves around their quarterback, and they play multiple quarterbacks. They're able to run. They're able to pass, and then really what it comes down to when you play a Ferris State football team is their offensive and defensive lines, and most people cannot get to a point where they can compete with them up front offensively or defensively. So that's the biggest challenge. That's the biggest challenge right there. And that's going to be our biggest challenge is can we hang in there and compete on the offensive and defensive lines against what they do, and defensively, I mean, shoot, they fly around, a lot of athletic ability, always get after the quarterback. They erase big plays with their speed. And then you get athletes in space on special teams. So, it's a three-pronged attack. There's a reason they're national champions. And returning national champions, Tony Anise is a heck of a head coach, and track record proves that. So it's our biggest challenge of the year, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we talked about this on Sunday night that you guys know them as well as anybody that isn't in the GLIAC. So everything you just said, people could take that to the bank because you guys have seen them plenty, both in the regular season, and you guys have had a couple playoff games against them as recently as the teens too. So this is not new territory for you and your guys.
Yeah. Coach, last thing for you before we let you go. The Harlon Hill nominee list came on out today. I think 36 guys off the top of my head nominated. Michael Shimmick, defensive end for your program, on the screen right now. Go ahead and make your case, Coach, for why this guy isn't just a nominee. He should be a finalist, and he should be a guy who's getting in that short list of discussion.
Well, I'd say first and foremost, he's leading the country in sacks, and that's all divisions. And it's not like people don't know about him. Had a good solid junior year. He was playing hurt most of the year, and this year was finally healthy in the off season and training for it. Just the impact you have on the game when you got a pass rusher. It affects. People got to throw the ball to win nowadays. It affects how people are going to game plan. They got to find a way. Do we slide the protection to him? Do we not? How are we going to handle him in the pass rush? Oh, by the way, he's a pretty good run defender as well. And for us, Tim Rose puts him in a great situation. He's a little more explosive than what you realize and a relentless motor. And has been a tremendous, tremendous player for us. I think with some of the numbers that he's putting up now, he's putting himself in the same category, not the same as yet, but a Bill Royce, who's a Hall of Famer. Sam Holler and Bubba Harris, those are very very well-regarded names in Ashland football history. And with this season that Mike's put together, he's put himself in that conversation.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, greatly appreciate you making time for us. Once again, congratulations on the huge win. And you know what? Hopefully your internet comes back up, Coach. That'll make your week a little bit more difficult if it doesn't. But you know what? Good luck this weekend and the rest of the tournament. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Well, Tony, great to get Coach on. I mean, the fact that we were still able to find a way to pull that off, we were pretty pleased with that.
Yeah,
and
the lack of internet is makes this a little more dicey.
In today's world, that's a big ask, isn't it? But let's go ahead and we'll move on with the other games that we had. There was a few other games played, and we just talked about a GMAC versus Northern Sun contest. That was one-sided, and then we had another one. And Tony, I was thinking this very thing when the games were going on. Is we have a situation here where we're going to have the exact flip of this, and I wasn't really entirely sure, kind of what to make of that. I mean, we can't deduce like, okay, one conference is having their way with the other when you have these kind of mixed results. I mean, it is what it is, but what were some of your takeaways in this one?
Well, I mean, I picked Ashland to beat Findlay, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and we see how well that went. So I made sure not to give Coach a hard time for being so difficult with me when it comes to picking 4 against him. But I mean, when we watched that game, it was pretty obvious because I think if I remember correctly, you and I were kind of watching that game and texting back and forth while we were watching it. And it was stark in how well Findlay owned the front on both sides of the ball in that game. And so to see Findlay get manhandled like this, that's a result that I don't know that I saw coming. Am I surprised that Minnesota State was able to do that? No, but in the convincing fashion that they did, yes, that surprised me a little bit. And maybe this feeds into the juice conversation that we had on Sunday and we just had with Coach. Ashland had a bit of a breather last week and playing somebody that's not such a big rivalry, whereas Findlay had to come back after knocking off Ashland. They had to play Tiffin the week later, and those are the two teams to which they are the closest geographically, Ashland and Tiffin. And maybe it was two straight rivalry games. They just came out flat because, I'm not surprised that over the course of 60 minutes, Minnesota State ended up being better up front. I just didn't think it would be that stark that early.
Yeah, and I joked around about this the other night, but I think Mankato, all of a sudden they get there and they go, so let me see if I get this straight. We don't have to chase Jack Strand around anymore,
right?
And have some team that's going to throw the ball all over the yard. We just got to really defend the run.
Just gum them up. Yeah,
okay, we can do this.
Yeah. And I think we can't undersell the way Mitchell Thompson played in this game either, because like we said,
no doubt.
In the first half, Mankato didn't run the ball, I think, as effectively as they would have liked to, but their ability to throw it and not necessarily deep shots all the time, but their ability just to get effective yardage gains and convert on third downs in particular was huge, because it allowed them to flip the field a couple times. Even if they didn't score off drives, it allowed them to kind of give their defense a rest because they kept the ball for a few minutes. It was one of those things while they were figuring out what was going to work, they were more effective at being just a little bit more successful offensively than Findlay kind of ever really got any momentum going on. And that really set things up for once they got that lead late in the second quarter, and they stepped on the gas once they came out of the break, and that was it.
Mitchell Thompson was sneaky good in this game.
Yeah, and he really was.
We're gonna hear Coach Hoffner in a moment, kind of talking a little bit about that, and he unpacks a little bit of that right here.
Thank you. Hard-fought game. Hats off to Findlay for putting on a first-class representation in the NCAA playoffs. We were treated with nothing but respect, so hats off to all the administrators, coaches, everybody here at the university for hosting us with class. Really appreciate that. First half, hard-fought battle. Findlay took the lead, 7-0. And, we had been down a few games lately and hadn't scored a lot of points early. So it felt a little bit like here we go again, but then we got some big plays. We came fighting right back, tied up the game, and I think a really huge momentum play was when Ian Baru scooped up a mishandled fumble. That stuff happens, and Ian was really sharp to not land on it, took advantage of the scoop and score opportunity, and then we had some really vicarious moments at the end of the first half with Mitchell Thompson. We ran out of timeouts. Coach Schlichty did a phenomenal job, our offensive coordinator, of scoring points with no timeouts, and Mitchell took a big risk by running it straight ahead, and he's a very powerful man to bring down, and he did a great job of taking it to pay dirt, and that was a really huge score right before half. I don't know if they can get any bigger than that drive, and we exhausted our timeouts, forced a punt, had a great punt return, and then the offense took it down and scored. But I think a big play of the second half was when Marcus Hansen got his hands on a tipped and deflected ball and then, corralled it, and everybody piled on him. But he made a phenomenal play in the second half. That was a huge momentum swing, and Findlay kept fighting. But hats off to my coaches and players for putting together a really good game plan and really well executed, but it wasn't without a lot of resistance.
Yeah, what Coach Hoffner, he obviously talks about Mitchell Thompson, how he did at quarterback there, and the way that, I felt, and I mentioned this a week ago, Tony, that I thought that Mankato, I was concerned about their inability to throw the ball and be effective enough in the playoffs. And they flat out proved me wrong right here by throwing for over 200 yards. This is what they had to do to have success, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, he just mentioned Marcus Hansen, who was a preseason All-American for us. Marcus Hansen had 1 sack this year, and frankly, just didn't have the kind of season, that he was wanting to have when he came over to Mankato. But, you know what? Sometimes, Tony, when a guy goes to a different club, they're not always used in the identical way they were before,
Sure.
and things of that sort, and stuff can happen. And you know what? He's gone to a different club, and he's still in the playoffs. So that says something right there. And he made a big play in a moment there when they needed one to make sure that Findlay didn't get anything going in that second half right away. And I felt that was one of those plays that helped make sure that the momentum kept going the Mavs' way and was a deflating moment for Findlay.
Yeah, and momentum seems to be such a big factor in any football game. But boy, in playoffs, everything just gets amplified, right? So when you make those big plays, particularly at key moments that either, change possession or keep points off the board for an opponent, we talked about the block kick, in the Ashland game, those types of things. Not only do they have an impact in the moment, but if you can get a string 2 or 3 of them together in a row, they get cumulative. And when you stack those types of things up, that's what sways you to a result like we saw in this game. So, I'm with you. Those were huge inflection points, and they all seem to go the Mavericks' way.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic year by Findlay here. They just, they end up at the end of the year losing to Tiffin. And, they in this game here, it just kind of felt like once, some of the negative plays happened, all of a sudden Mankato kind of steamrolled from there.
Yeah, and again, it was almost like a no juice type of a thing.
Yeah, and the fumble return, on the punt right before halftime, I thought was the single biggest play in the football game.
Yeah, I agree. Although I will tell you, though, we talked about this. I think we talked about it on the Region show last week. We really felt like Minnesota State in this game, if one team had a better chance to be able to deliver on a balanced offensive performance, that it was probably Mankato.
Sure.
And they proved that out, right? I mean, once Findlay got down, the thing we were worried about for them is, can they come back? And obviously they didn't have the firepower to really make a dent in the lead that Mankato had built. And so then again, when they stacked together those big plays, being opportunistic, in addition to that, it just made the hill way too big. So I was impressed at how again, just consistent and opportunistic that Minnesota State offense was, because they adjusted to what the defense was giving them and made it work throughout all different phases of the game, even though in the early going it wasn't necessarily resulting in points for them.
Right. Moving on to our next contest, Ferris State, and what ended up being a pretty one-sided contest here. They were up, what was it, 44 to not so many at halftime.
I think it was 44 to 14, but I mean, it was 21-7 at one point. I'm trying to think, was it even 14 to 7? Maybe I think it might have been 14 to 7 at one point.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm believing quite as much as that, how close it was as you are, but I'll go.
I'm just trying to say it wasn't, it wasn't 38 to nothing right out of the chute, I guess is my
fair
point.
enough. It was not.
Northwood was game, in the early going.
We do have another game that we're going to talk about that was kind of that way, but
we are.
No. So, and we saw in this one here, I thought a mix of Chase Carter going ahead and getting the start. And I thought doing real well, but Tony also, because Tony has to keep you on your toes. Plenty of Carson Gulker here to go ahead and kind of that power run game, along with using him. I mean, he's using him now. I mean, it's like he's the 6'3" version of Brady Rose now all of a sudden. I mean, we're using him all kinds of different ways. So, and, on the flip side, Northwood just did not have the answers defensively. I mean, 558 yards for Ferris. And, I mean, this is no one was looking to go and make the trip into Ferris to start the tournament. So it was a matter of, is it going to be Truman? Is it going to be Northwood? Who's it going to be? And I think this probably would have been a similar result against plenty of teams in this first round contest.
Yeah, probably so.
Now, we also had, was it Wyatt Bauer did not play in this contest. and we don't know. Maybe we'll see a little bit of him in the weeks that follow. Obviously, he's got a whole lot of mileage on his tires this year leading up into this point.
True.
And the fact that Tony Annese can have Chase Carter, kind of his 1B, step in and make plays in the way he does, and he's got another gear when he gets to open field and everything else. I mean, just says a whole lot about this Ferris club. This is nothing new, Tony. We've been talking about this kind of stuff on our GLIAC show, but it's just like it just continues to happen.
Yeah, well, and it's the thing of it is each of those guys can do a lot of the same things, but they also have certain strengths that make them just that much harder to defend, right? I mean, Carson Gulker is probably the closest thing that we've seen at Ferris since the Jason Vanderlaan days. You know, the big, you know, burly guy who's faster than you think he should be, who can, you know, if that offensive line gets any kind of a push and it's 3rd and 3 or shorter, you're not going to stop it. And it's not tush push junk either. I mean, it's just flat out, we're going to shove the line this far this way and let our big guy get in behind it. And if it stops and you fall forward, you're still going to fall past the line to gain. But then you got, you know, guys like Bauer, who kind of is a lot more shifty, even though he does a lot of stuff kind of more up the rails in terms of everything being between the hashes. He's kind of a good blend of things, a little bit taller. And Carter maybe just a hair smaller, but he's an all GLIAC track guy. So he might be one of the fastest guys on that team.
Exactly.
Which is saying something. So, you know, when you got guys like Tariq Brett and other cats like that on the team, they're a lot of fast dudes. And, you know, so when your quarterback's able to get the ball, I mean, he had that one touchdown that he had in I'm trying to remember if that was in the first or the second quarter, but I mean, it was 50 plus, and it was once he cleared the linebacker level, it was like, God, there's not, you know, there's nobody on either sideline that's going to catch that cat. So
yeah, he was running 100 in the middle of the football field.
That's exactly. So, you know, when you've got that many different ways that you can use things, and I think you referred to Gulker here too. You know, he played a lot of quarterback in this game. So when you see the 15 carries, that belies maybe a little bit of how he was getting the ball. He was lined up in that quarterback position. He didn't throw a pass, didn't have to. But he also caught several passes because they've been using him as that kind of H-back. Sometimes they'll line him up as true tight end. Sometimes he'll even get more into the slot or even boundaries a little bit. You don't see it often, but it's just enough to make you think. And then he did take a few handoffs too, just kind of as a single wingback. So when you got a guy who's that big and that fast, and I think Coach Annese has referred to him as a pro caliber all around athlete, which I think there are scouts that are looking at him just for what the different skill sets he can bring. Yeah, put him in there and use him any way you can. So I mean, to see them get creative with how they want to get these guys the ball in different ways, that's standard fare for what Ferris has done over the years.
Well, let's have a listen to Coach Annese after the contest here.
Yeah, obviously, great performance from our team. Super excited that we were able to come out and perform. I don't know what it is about the playoffs, but we definitely seem to be uplifted when the playoffs start. And so very pleased about that. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Northwood University had an unbelievable year. You know, I hear, and I'm a GLIAC coach, so just so you guys know, but I hear rumblings about the GLIAC crying that we were the only team in the field, and that GMAC teams don't deserve to be in the field, or at least 3 GMAC teams. And I'm going to say this: Northwood beat 2 GLIAC teams. They're 2-0 against the GLIAC, and one of them was our second place team. And so they earned it. They earned it. And so people, people have to look at that and say, man, I mean, what a job by Dusty and his staff, and what a great season they had, and they earned their way here. That's just the way it works in the playoffs. I know it's hard. I know it's challenging, but every game counts, So, I don't know. I guess it was maybe week 2 where Northwood beat Saginaw, but it happened, and it happened, early in the season, and that's the way it is. So credit to them, and Dusty's going to build that program, and they're going to keep on growing and be a really good program for years to come.
Coach talking about complaints about the GMAC. I think he was in our comments section on one of our shows or something.
Could be. Maybe he's got a burner account that he's in.
I'm just going to say I might have just kicked him out of the comments a moment ago. But no. I think first of all, congratulations to Northwood on a great season. If you would have told me before the year that they were going to be a playoff squad, I probably wouldn't immediately have been on board with that. And you know what? They took another step and got themselves to this point. And with any programs on their way up, there's always, moments like this, Tony, of, okay, we need to make the playoffs. Then, you run into somebody real good who's real playoff savvy. And now the next year is we need to now take another step. Yep. And I thought this was a real good year by Northwood to get to this point. But, they just ran into a buzzsaw here.
Yeah, and I think for Coach Neese to give Coach Buer the accolades that he is well deserved from the standpoint that Northwood was still in the GLIAC just a handful of years ago, and if you saw the way they were playing those last couple of years in the GLIAC,
right,
the idea that they could be less than 5 years away from being a playoff contender would have been something I don't know that I would have. It wouldn't have been on my bingo card. Let's just leave it at that. That last year in the GLIAC, everybody was just pounding the tar out of them. And so for them to be as competitive as they have been week in, week out, and to get themselves to 9 wins in a season this quickly, oh man, it's such a massive turnaround that's happened there. Again, it's for old guys like me, Northwood being competitive and good is not this foreign thing. I mean, when Coach Riepma was running things in the aughts, this was a team that won a GLIAC championship and made the playoffs, I think, either 3 years in a row or 3 times in a 4-year stretch or something like that. I mean, they were a tough out, man. They put guys in the pros. So, I mean, it was Northwood used to be, one of those teams that, every year you had to figure out what you were going to do with them. And they actually used to run an offense that was very option-based as well. So they looked a lot like a Harding does, where they only throw the ball a handful of times a game, and they were difficult to prepare for. So, again, for them to have fallen as far as they did was kind of sad to be able to see that. So to see the job that Coach has done there to get them to be playoff caliber now is just it's nothing short of phenomenal. He deserves a lot of credit for it.
No doubt. That moves us, Tony, to our final contest that we had between Truman State and UIndy, Indianapolis, the Greyhounds. And Tony, I got a chance to watch first half of this game. I had a little bit of time on my lunch hour today, work from home, and this game was a blowout in a hurry. And first play of the game, Indy scores from 70 yards out or whatever it was. First play, they went 5 wide. Hit a guy in the slot, just goes right down the field for a touchdown. Hit wide open by Sukup. And then the next possession, I think it was 3 plays later, they went to the field and scored. And I thought, holy mackerel. Now, this is, I think a lot of people watching don't realize just how explosive this UIndy team has now become. And, you go ahead and you look, they've got a collection of wideouts that a lot of them are more in that 5'8", 5'9" range that move really well. And go ahead and they're the kind of guys, Tony, who you would probably see playing Division I if they had all the traditional measurables.
Sure.
And you know what? Those are tough guys to deal with, and they can run the ball. And I was very impressed watching UIndy in that contest. And equally, I just felt like Truman was shell-shocked.
Yeah.
They've played this team before. This is a conference opponent, but this was 30-0, at half or whatever it was, and just kind of a blowout from beginning to end.
Well, it was 30-0, and any chance that Truman had of getting back in the game, I think they had the ball coming out of the break and end up throwing a pick 6. And so, If it wasn't Goodnight Irene already, it was at that point. And you got to give Truman some credit. I mean, they stayed in and fought. I mean, they ended up only getting outgained by about 90 yards or so, maybe 80 plus. And you could see there too. I mean, they outpossessed Indianapolis by quite a bit. But I think that just goes back to what you were saying earlier about how explosive Indianapolis was. They didn't have lots of 8, 10, 12 play drives. A lot of it was big chunks. Put it in the end zone and then basically get your defense back out there and tell Truman, hey, what are you going to do? So, but I think the other thing too that this kind of exemplified, and we talked a little bit about this on the show last week, is Indianapolis does a great job, and we've seen this repeatedly throughout the season of being able to do well at what is needed to win offensively. If they need to be more explosive, they do it. If they need to pound the ball more so, then they've done that. So I think that's what I think sets them up well, at least in the early stages of this bracket, is that if they find a weakness in an opposing defense, they've got the balance to be able to exploit it.
Totally. Yeah. We're going to listen to Coach Chris Keevers from UIndy after the contest. We'll hear that here, and he's flanked by the guy we mentioned a moment ago, Gavin Sukup.
I was happy the way we came out. We came out ready to play and started hot, and that's so key for us. It's nice to win a playoff game. It's nice to have a home playoff game. We were rewarded for our good play during the year, and I said it last week. It's a huge advantage when you're in the playoffs to play at home, and we took advantage of that.
And I will open the floor for questions. Gavin, I'll start with you. You mentioned last week that this team is battle tested, and you think that that's a big part of the reason that you guys are so successful and are going to continue to be so successful. What did that mean to you guys in this first game? How you guys played?
I think, like Coach said, just getting off to a hot start. Like, it really was never a game from the get-go. And just, I really don't think that games that we've been in that were close to the beginning of the season really we didn't have to improve off of, being battle tested. We just came out today and just from the get-go, just rolled them.
Coach, 4 consecutive playoffs, 11th GLBC title for UIndy. It's all been done under your leadership. What has it been like to see this team continue to grow and to get better year after year?
Well, this team is special. I said this to them a couple weeks ago. The way the energy that they have during the week is amazing, and the consistent effort that they give during the week and that's the whole key. Like, you want a good football team, you better do something during the week. And we've had great weeks. Guys, they love to practice. And because of that, we keep getting better. So just very proud of our football team. I love our guys. I love this football team. This didn't feel like sometimes the playoffs, man, it's been a long season. We don't. This has been fantastic. And we just want to keep playing.
Well, they just rolled them, says Gavin Sukup.
Right. And he's not wrong.
No, and that's just it. He's telling no lies. And you know what? I think that this is a very confident football team. You can see and hear that, and they're ready. They want to make a long run in this tournament. They have made it to this tournament before and not had good fortune. And for them to get off to a start like this feels like a very dangerous ball club. And I'm sure, their next opponent, Mankato, threw on the film and said, okay, we got a whole lot to worry about when we watch this offense. And there's no doubt about that. So it makes for, I think, maybe one of maybe if not the most intriguing matchup in round 2, certainly one of them.
I would agree with that. And again, I think you nailed it in that when we'll talk about it here when we get to the game breakdowns is, again, Mankato had a real good game plan to be able to kind of stifle that run game against Findlay. And once you took that away, they just weren't explosive enough to do anything. And now, to your point, they're going to put this tape on and say, gosh, if we could take that run away, is that maybe even not a good idea? Right. Maybe we got to try and take the pass away in this game and see if Indy can beat us running the football.
I think that may very well be the case, Tony.
They may have to.
Yeah, I mean, because Sukup is prolific as a passer, but he also does a nice job of escaping trouble I mean, he's not a running quarterback per se. He's not going to be running for 100 yards a game. Now that I've said that, he'll probably run for 100 yards this week. But
Right.
he's an opportunistic runner that also can escape trouble. And I was very impressed with how they played in their opener here. So
Yeah, well, they've got a pair of backs there at Indy too that get kind of equal carries. You're going to see that it's almost a committee type of thing between Fataki and what's the other guy's name? I think it's Devin Nelson. They all kind of seem to get the same number of carries game to game that Sukup does. So they've got the ability to go inside outside on you. They got the ability to hot hand you. I mean, it could be a whole different host of ways that they could try to run the football. So again, that's if Mankato feels like they got to try and shut down that pass game, it doesn't mean that the run game is going to be incapable for Indianapolis.
yeah, and Garrett Sherrill has come on for them at running back. Oh, and I tell you a guy to watch for in UIndy, defensive end Danny Royster is number 0 D end for them. They play a 4-man front. And to give you an idea what kind of year Danny Royster's had, he's 13 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
It's not too bad from a DN spot. And he's a pretty athletic guy, 6'3", 235. So he's not some big bulky guy.
Right.
More built like a tight end at that point. So
yeah, you're right. Sherrill's the guy I was thinking of in the run game.
That's what I figured you meant. Yep. And all of their skill guys got a little bit of burst to them also.
Sure.
So I think Mankato's going to have to deal with some team speed there as we move forward with that. And for those who are tuning in, by the way, we will have we're right almost at the top of the hour. At 30 minutes after, we will have the SR2 show, the Super Region 2 show with our guy Coach Poe will be hosting with his cast of characters. And so they'll be coming on then. So Tony and I, we're going to go ahead and review our games, but then they will be up next after us, just to give everybody a heads up of a programming note per se. And then Chuck in Super Region 1 will be tomorrow, to the best of my recollection. So I'm not even keeping all this straight, Tony. So
you're doing better than I am.
It's on our Twitter page. Chuck put all the times and all that. I didn't pay enough attention to the other dates because, well, this is my last show of the week. So let's go, Tony, and move into the matchups that we have. We've got two ball games here where you feel like you've got a little bit of a Ferrari going, and the other one's more like an F-350. In terms of stylistic comparison here. Because as we take a look at Ferris, not that they can't be that F-150, but they've got some of those aspects themselves, but just a whole lot of the Ferrari when the ball's in their hand. And how do you see this one? What's kind of your take on it, buddy?
Well, I think the thing that would scare me the most in this game for Ashland is, again, just the physicality of Ashland's offensive line, and Coach Geiser kind of talked a little bit about that. The speed, I can't imagine that Ashland has seen that level of speed at any point this season. So that's going to be an adjustment for them. And again, we alluded to this a little bit on the show on Sunday night. Ferris's defense is starting to get healthy. We saw Jalen Jones for the first time in a while. CSI Apia is kind of back in the middle of that defensive line. You're just starting to see some of the pieces that at different points of the back half of the year weren't there. And when you saw Ferris give up, 30 spots, I think 4 weeks in a row, you kind of sat there and thought, Jesus, what are they defensively? Well, you're starting to see them dial it back in. Now, I'm not gonna necessarily say that Northwood would have presented the same task that Ashland's probably going to. But at the same time, that defense is better now than it was probably a month ago.
I see this game very similar to Harding and Pitt State. I feel like Ashland is kind of the pit state in this game where
I can see
think
that.
I think they can be a real challenge to the other squad, but I just feel like the other squad just has they're a level above what we're seeing in the rest of the division, and I think both of them keep it close enough by halftime. I just think that third quarter becomes a pivotal thing where I think it's going to be hard for Ashland. I don't know if they're going to be able to be explosive enough offensively against a Ferris team that is just hard to keep up with, lack of better terms.
Well, and so I'm wondering if we aren't going to see Ashland do everything they can to try and run the football and maybe use a short controlled passing game to see if they can just put together 6, 8, 10 play drives where they get 3 or 4 first downs and keep Ferris off the field and maybe limit the number of possessions. I mean, it just seems like that's one of the only viable ways that you're going to have to try and keep that game closer for longer is just to keep Ferris's offense off the field. Because again, we watched that game Saturday against Northwood. Ferris really never got stopped. I mean, they scored almost virtually at will. Again, I would absolutely say that Ashland's defense is greater than Northwood's defense. I don't think that's an unfair characterization. But we're seeing an offense that kind of doesn't matter who's taking the snaps. They've got a pretty big advantage over just about anybody they're going to put on the field. In part, again, just because of how well that offensive line's been playing. So, I don't know. This seems like a really tall task for Ashland. I think we all picked Ferris on the show on Sunday night. If Ashland goes in there and stuns them, hey, we've been around this long enough to never be surprised by a whole lot. And like we talked about, Ferris, what's funny is the weather could have an impact on the game, I suppose. I mean, Ferris it does have that knack of putting the ball on the deck a little bit more often than some schools do. So does snow have an impact and maybe influence that a little bit? I suppose. But when you can be so effective as Ferris is, run heavy, and it's still basically just snap the ball to somebody and it's student body, just left or just right, and you're never putting the ball in the air, that mitigates that pretty quick.
I think Ashland's got to sell out against the run and try and make Ferris throw the ball, especially with Ashland's pass rush being a bit of an X factor.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So much easier said than done, let's be real frank. And, Daryl puts here, what part of Ashland's offense does Ferris, take out? I really think they try and take out the run game as well and make Ashland be real productive in the pass game. Ashland didn't throw the ball especially well against Duluth last week, and they're not built to be pass happy, in my opinion. I just think that both teams are going to try, and that will be their focus. I really do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Blair's only thrown for about not even 2,000 yards on the season. So, what they do is about controlled, opportunistic. For as much as they threw a 9 for 22 in there last week, they're a little more efficient than that as a whole. Right. And so, again, I think that's going to have to be part of it. Is okay if Ferris is going to take away that run game, which is, I'm guessing, is going to be part of where they start, there's got to be some sort of a short controlled pass game that's quick and really hard to defend that basically ends up serving as your run game, again, to try and eat some clock and get some first downs and eventually got to turn some of those possessions into points. But, yeah, you got to do everything you can to try and at least have the effect of a run game in there to keep the ball away from Ferris's offense as much as possible. I just feel like that's got to be the key. And if Ferris can take away that run game, it's going to get real hard, real fast.
Yeah, no question. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at our other game, which, you and I have kind of said that we think this is one of the best games of the weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
You take a look at, obviously, Indianapolis's, scoring and points per game jumps off the page. They're one of the top in the nation that way. And then on the defensive side, Mankato's roughly about the same in their points allowed. I could probably make a case that there's a little bit more depth in the Northern Sun of opponents than what they'll see in the GLVC. Indy will, and I don't think I'm going out on a big leap there. So maybe that number for Mankato wouldn't be quite as high in the GLVC, or however you want to look at that.
Sure.
But that said, you've got Coach Hoffner, who has had, if you took a look at the last 10 years, he's got plenty of wins in this tournament.
Yep.
And, Indy has one win, probably, in the recent history that comes to mind for me, since COVID. And, a lot of tough matchups at the same time.
Right.
So, how do you see this one, and which way do you lean?
Well, I've kind of waffled back and forth on this one for all the reasons that you just talked about, right? I mean, Mankato has a playoff pedigree. This coaching staff knows how to get these kids ready for games like this. I think I would agree that on a week in, week out basis, it's probably a hair more physical in the Northern Sun than it is in the GLVC. By the same token, the only team from the GLVC that consistently makes the playoffs is UIndy.
Yep.
And so they remember what it was like being in the GLIAC. Yes, everybody who doesn't know that, the Indy was in the GLIAC for a whole bunch of years. They are a founding member of the GLVC, but for a lot of years, the GLVC didn't have football. So UIndy played his football in the GLIAC. They understood what the physical nature of that league was week in and week out. And so as Indy has gotten back into playoff games and had to play Pitt State, 2 years in a row or 3 years in a row or something like that, and had to play at Grand Valley last year, they've seen what that level of physicality is. And you can't tell me that Coach Keevers doesn't have that in the back of his mind of, okay, if I can be more physical up front, not only is it going to make it easier for me to get through my own league, but it's give me an increased chance of being able to get deeper into the playoffs. And it's what we need, quite frankly, to be able to win those types of games. So there's part of me that wonders if this Indianapolis team maybe just isn't more ready for this spot than they have been in the past. I guess we'll find out. I would say that, they didn't appear, one of the games against Pitt State, I think they got pretty overwhelmed. There was another game against Pitt State where it was a ball game into the third quarter. Right. At Grand Valley last year, I just don't think that they were ready for what Grand Valley's defense was going to throw at them, because Grand Valley's offense wasn't particularly impressive in that game, but Indy couldn't move the ball hardly at all and barely was able to cross the 50. I just feel like this team is more complete, is more balanced, and again, is more explosive. And so I took Indy on Sunday. A Mankato win in this game would not surprise me in the least for all the reasons that we've talked about. And I really struggled with it. But again, I think just kind of like me riding with Permian Basin out west, it just seems like maybe this is Indy's year to go deeper and to kind of take that next step forward. And, I guess we're going to find out in a few days. And, that weather system that you mentioned earlier, too, that might be hitting far enough south that this game could be impacted as well. So I don't know what difference that's going to make. I mean, I don't think the players care. I think we probably talk more about weather on shows like this.
Yes, we do.
And in fan circles than really the coaching staffs or the kids really pay any attention to it. So,
well, Tony, I mentioned it the other night. I feel like if UIndy is able to get their offense going early, this could be a 38-13 Indy kind of blowout, frankly.
Yeah. I think I'd be more surprised if it went the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side of this, UIndy is not huge up front defensively.
Yep.
And if Mankato was able to lean on them and do a little bit of that +1 run game, and mix in some passing and make UIndy kind of come up a bit and defend, that's where I think Mankato can go ahead and win what I will think is a tightly contested ball game.
Sure.
At this point, I've gone against Coach Hoffner enough in the playoffs between last year and
to know
this
better
year that I feel like I've been playing the fool with them or something, where I'm just not giving them the credit for him being that good of a playoff coach and getting his guys up to play there.
Sure.
So I'm staying with my pick on Sunday night of Mankato here, but I think that we view this as a coin flip game, and we wouldn't be surprised, with either team as the winner. But I'm really looking forward to it. And I think that snow, I would say that's advantage Mankato a little bit.
Yeah,
Because,
probably.
with Indy wanting to throw the ball around the yard a whole lot more than Mankato. But, we've also seen that where receivers are running open and the defenders slips and all that stuff that goes with that too. So
that's right. Slippery terrain is the advantage to the offense for sure. So
no doubt.
And
well,
but this might feed into the same type of thing we just talked about in the last game too. Maybe Mankato's got to do kind of an Ashland thing where maybe they lean on them up front with that size advantage and they limit possessions. That could very easily be what Coach Hoffner and his staff are going to try and do.
Yeah. Well, last thing we have before we let you go for the night, we did mention earlier on the show that the Harlon Hill candidates came on out. Remember, these are the schools who are nominating their players. So if your player didn't get nominated, don't be mad at the NCAA or be mad at your school for not nominating them, simply put. So here is the list for SR3, Tony.
Yeah.
Frankly, a little bit surprised right at the top of the page that Kyle Waljasper's not on there from Minnesota Duluth. Instead, we have Luke Deneke, freshman tight end, who frankly had such a good season. I think they're going to have a hard time keeping him there, if I'm going to be honest. But
possible.
I mean, that we're in that day and age, aren't we? So
we are.
But I think maybe that was a move of, hey, Kyle Waljasper, is going to kind of get blocked out by Jack Strand for the interest or vote up here, quarterback to quarterback.
Yeah.
Maybe that's some of it right there. Jack Strand, I think, is probably one of the favorites on this list to move forward. But we've got, a lot of guys who, really good lists, to be frank. And, we talked about Michael Shimmick a moment ago. I'll be honest, Tony, I wouldn't mind seeing the sack leader in Division II. Well, actually in all divisions, as Coach mentioned, move forward in this at all. That'd be kind of neat.
I would love it. Because those guys, I think Coach Kiesler was right. I mean, those guys have an outsized impact on the game. And we think back to what Caleb Murphy was doing, just a couple of years ago at Ferris State. Those were guys that they would shift game plans. And so when you have the game plan around what's this guy going to be able to do, how much of the field or how much of what we're trying to do schematically can he take away? That's a big shift in the game. And I think it's great for guys like that to get some love in this Harlan Hill speak and not have them just be relegated to the Upshaw Award, which is beyond prestigious. But, some of these guys are as important to their teams, as a quarterback or anybody else is going to be. And so for them to be considered for National Player of the Year, I think is more than fair.
If you were going to go ahead and place your guess on who gets the deal here out of the two, who would be the two guys that you think get nominated here to move forward and become one of the 8 finalists?
I would actually tend to lean towards I think Noah Dover had an awesome season for Northern Michigan. He led the GLIAC in rushing, and I think he ended up being pretty close to the top 5, or certainly was in the top 10 nationally.
He is top 5. Yep.
I think his drawback is going to be he got about half those yards in 3 games. So
that happens. Yeah.
Yep. So because I think that last game of the season he had 4 bills. So I mean,
right,
it's phenomenal, but it's to be able to do that consistently is important.
I think that's a fair point.
Yeah. To me, I think the bottom 3 guys are my 3. You really take a close look at it.
Only 2 make it, though. Only 2.
No, I know, but you're saying who do I think has the best chances? I think Shimmick, Strand, and Sukup are your 3 that would have the best chance to be in the final 2.
I totally agree with you on that. Yeah. I think Strand, given the season he had when the voters, the SIDs, go and look at the stats and Strands are up at the top of the page as a quarterback.
Yeah.
I think that he's probably a default answer.
Yeah, and some voters, that's the key on that more than anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Sukup, though, is right there. So I think that's the uphill battle that a guy like Shimmick has. Defensive players just have a hard time getting the love in this, unless you put up ridiculous numbers, and that did happen a few years ago. Certainly.
I don't know if I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say it's Shimmick and Strand.
There we go. I'm going to say Strand and Sukup, but we'll go ahead and see what that ends up looking like. But Tony, you and I need to evacuate the studio. We still have internet, but we have our SR2 guys who will be joining and doing their deal here in about 20 minutes. So, Tony, thank you very much for kind of helping me unpack everything here. We had quite a bit to do.
Thanks to you for helping me unpack it, man. It was a team effort.
You know what? And we had Coach join us. We got all of that taken care of. And now we're leaving you guys. Thank you.